Yes, hello everyone. I welcome you to this new daily news digest session. Today is 24th of January, and I have a couple of articles from both the Indian Express and the Hindu. My first article basically is from the Hindu, which is a very important article from international relations perspective. The article basically is that is France's influence in West Asia over? Let's try and understand what this article is all about. On January the 1st, Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara announced that French troops would withdraw from the country by the end of the month. On December 26 in Chad, France handed over its military base in Faya Largeau and began the withdrawal of troops following the termination of a defense cooperation agreement in November. On December 3, Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye called for the closure of all French military bases, commenting that their presence was incompatible with the country's national sovereignty. Senegal, Ivory Coast, and Chad had joined three West African countries, that is Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, asking for French troops withdrawal, marking a major blow to the France's waning influence in the region. This shows that France's influence somehow is seen to be declining. Please try and understand that France has been a very important colonial power when it comes to West Asian countries, and it has not just enjoyed political control over them, but also social and even economic control. And the question arises that why did Chad, Ivory Coast, and Senegal ask for French troops withdrawal? First, the narrative on incompatibility with national sovereignty. France has around 1,000 troops in Chad, 600 in Ivory Coast, and 350 in Senegal. Since independence, France had colonial pacts with these former colonies to maintain economic, political, and military influence, which is referred to as France-Afrique in Senegal and Ivory Coast. French troops have been stationed since 2014 as part of Operation Barkhane. For Chad, the defense pact existed for decades and does not align with its security requirements. Its president, Mohamed Dabi, said that ending the defense agreement is like taking back national sovereignty. This term sovereignty should be read by you if you are not aware of it. It's a very important term. Ivory Coast and Senegal have followed in similar footsteps for a reciprocal relationship that respects each other's independence and sovereignty. Second, public dissatisfaction over French presence. French troops have been fighting insurgent groups linked to the Islamic State and Al Qaeda across West Africa since 2014. Despite their military presence, French troops failed to quell the insurgency in the region. Besides, it has spread, degenerated, and intensified across the region. This raised anti French sentiments alongside a public demand for their withdrawal. Third, and another very important topic, West Africa's quest to move beyond France. Recently, many West African countries have shown interest in diversifying their relations from traditional colonial to new partners. The military governments in West Africa, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have built military ties with Russian mercenaries to fight this insurgency. For military leaders, Russian mercenaries do not come with the baggage of adhering to democratic value. This is one thing that separates them from the French. Besides, Russia has successfully spread an image as a better security provider in Africa. This also needs to be remembered by us. What does French withdrawal mean for the African countries? For Africa, French withdrawal means the end of France's decade-long influence. However, in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, French withdrawal and Russia's arrival had not addressed or contained insurgency. Rather, these three countries rank among the top in the Global Terrorism Index of 2024 by the Institute for Economics and Peace. The military regimes have strengthened in the region with the new alliance of Sahel states between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. The common anti-French sentiments would likely bring Chad, Senegal, and Ivory Coast to join the Sahel alliance and an opportunity to boost regional counter-terrorism efforts. What does the withdrawal mean for the France? The Sahel alliance, this Sahel word is important because this has been asked once in prelims as a previous year question. What does the withdrawal mean for France? The withdrawal basically means four implications. First, the obituary of the Francafrique, which basically is a very important term associated with Ivory Coast and Senegal. Basically, second thing that can be seen is this might reduce the prominence of France in maintaining a strong economic and diplomatic foothold. The decline in political influence affects economic relations. That is, President Ouattara has been in terms with support from France. However, President Gbagbo's re-emergence in 2020 challenged political stability. Without political influence, fulfilling France's economic interest can be problematic. Thirdly, a waning military presence would impact international reputation. The military has supported pro-France African leaders to maintain political and economic stability. French armed forces have been stationed in support of United Nations operations since the Ivorian Civil War. Ivorian Civil War, important from history point of view. Therefore, projecting France as a global fighter against terrorism and a defender is going to become difficult. Lastly, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have pushed out French troops involuntarily, which are now either replaced by Russian mercenaries or engulfed in a military coup, making French influence almost impossible. It is uncertain for the Ivory Coast given its political and economic ties with France, even after independence. However, is there a larger waning European influence in Africa? Is European influence declining in Africa? Please understand that Europe's declining presence is basically directly related with greater competition with Russia and France. The EU is struggling with the shifting political landscapes, security issues from the war in Ukraine, and larger economic strain. Therefore, handling autocracies, migrants, and anti-Europe sentiment has been put on the back burner. In the last few decades, Germany, France, and the UK have called down their development funding, leading to increased military coup and greater involvement of external actors. The EU's trade surplus has declined by 15% from 55 billion euros to 35 billion between 2022 and 2023. In comparison, China maintains a surplus of more than 70 billion euros. Militarily as well, Russia has benefited from the troops withdrawal. Whether this will change the right-wing government in Europe is worth asking. The 2024 manifestos of these parties can be useful in this regard. Their policies are more security-oriented in managing borders and migrants rather than being economically driven. In the coming years, Europe's foreign policy approach will be more inward-looking, with few European Union members looking to expand markets into Africa while facing competition from China. Fine, so this is about this article. Now let's discuss a question based on this particular article. The question is, which of the following is not a reason for the recent demand by countries like Chad, Ivory Coast, and Senegal for withdrawing of French troops? First, French troops' inability to effectively contain insurgencies in the region. This is one among the reasons. Incompatibility of French military presence with national sovereignty. This is also correct. Preference for diversifying relations with new partners, including Russia. This is also correct. However, direct economic sanctions imposed by France on these countries is not among those. So 4 is the correct answer. Let's come to the next question. Next article. This article basically is from the Indian Express. AI gains in United States, China put India's goal under scanner. Should the country build a large language model? There are keywords and terms which I think are important from this particular article's perspective. In the US, the likes of OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, Microsoft, and NVIDIA are coming together to build artificial intelligence infrastructure for OpenAI in the country. An investment of approximately $500 billion is expected to be made in a new company, that is Stargate project, to fuel this expansion over the next 4 years. In China, a company has recently shown a new large language model, which is being touted to beat or to be at par with OpenAI's O1 in several math, coding, and reasoning benchmarks. The model launched by Chinese AI lab DeepSeek is open source and is being made available to people at a fraction of OpenAI's cost. These two developments in the span of few days have put the spotlight squarely on India and the path it chooses in the new AI arms race. Artificial intelligence is going to become a very, very important ingredient of a country's domestic and foreign policy in the future. And therefore, there are a large number of questions that need to be seen. First, does India have the economic bandwidth to fuel procurement of AI-specific hardware at scale? Second, should India even focus on building a foundational model or just work on use case specific wrappers that are built on top of other companies' models? And to LLM or not to LLM, large language models. Let's try and understand what this is. One of the key questions facing India and the country's businesses and researchers is whether to build a foundational model from scratch or rely on some already available open source large language models to build wrappers. Even within this question, there are further doubts. If an LLM is to be made, should it be India specific, filled with information about specific Indian languages and related knowledge, or if it should be a complete foundational model? This is another question. यहाँ पे Infosys co-founder Nandan Nilekani's idea comes to mind. He said that India should not focus on building large language models. Our goal should not be to build one more LLM. Let the big boys in the Silicon Valley do it, spending billions of dollars. We will use it to create synthetic data, build small language models quickly, and train them using appropriate data. Right? This is because it requires a large amount of funding. However, some in the AI industry believe this could be a flawed approach. To To be sure, the model released by China's DeepSeek has shown that training an AI model may not be possible, may not be as expensive an endeavor as previously thought, with cutting-edge models possible at a fraction of the cost of what it took companies like OpenAI and Meta. What are the computing costs involved here? That brings us to another fundamental requirement for training large language models, that is hardware. NVIDIA has a virtual monopoly on the graphics processing units as of now, needed to train sophisticated foundation models. Companies like OpenAI and Meta have procured thousands and thousands of these GPUs to build their models. These GPUs, that is graphic processing units, are a major cost center of AI operations today and an area where Indian companies are fairly challenged. The government has around approximately rupees 13,370 crore India AI mission, under which it plans to subsidize private companies to help them procure 10,000 graphics processing units and set up AI data centers, which could be assessed by other startups at a nominal cost to build their wrapper models. There could, however, be a challenge to these plans coming from the US. Days before demitting office, the Joe Biden administration released an expansive regulatory framework on the export of AI hardware, which could have far-reaching consequences for India's AI ambitions. Apart from this, in an interim final rule titled Framework for Artificial Intelligence Diffusion, the US government has proposed to create 3 tiers of countries with specific restrictions on the export of AI chips and graphic processing units for each. India is in the middle tier of this classification and will face some restrictions on the number of graphics processing units it can import from the US. These countries will face a limit on how much computing power they can import from American companies unless that computing power is hosted in trusted and secure environments. There are caps on the levels of computing power that can go to each of these countries, roughly around 50,000 advanced AI chips through 2027, although that can double if the state reaches an agreement with the US. Apart from this tiered classification, the law also envisions a special review called the General Validated End User. This list includes only 2 countries, that is India and China. That means India and China are already on the radar when it comes to US. Indian companies that get this authorization can use the exported items for only civilian and military purposes, but not for nuclear use. Chinese companies, on the other hand, with this authorization can only use that technology for civilian use. So this makes AI, artificial intelligence, large language models, small language models, an important topic from your exam's perspective. Now let's have a look at the question that can potentially be asked from this particular topic. The question is, with reference to the recent developments in artificial intelligence, consider the following statements. The Stargate project in the United States is expected to invest around $500 billion over the next 4 years to build AI infrastructure for OpenAI. This statement is correct. It was on his very first day as the president of the US that President Trump basically signed the Stargate project. China's DeepSeek has developed an open source large language model that is globally competitive in benchmarks from math, coding, and reasoning. This is also correct. This was mentioned in the article. India's AI mission focuses solely on building foundational models from scratch to compete globally. This is not the case. This is an extreme statement. Third statement is wrong. The US has proposed tiered restrictions on AI hardware exports, with India classified in the middle tier. Yes, we have been classified in the middle tier. Fourth statement is correct. Correct answer is 1, 2, and 4. So these were the articles from today's newspaper, which I found to be very fascinating. And we'll meet again with the future articles in the upcoming sessions. Thank you so much.